welcome back to my channel. My name is Kelsey and the NetGalley gods are calling me again. So every couple of months, I end up accumulating a lot of arcs that need to be read in 1 month, and I try to make a vlog about it where I read them in 1 week. This vlog in particular is an accumulation of a lot of horror books that I've accumulated over the last couple of months. When it comes to horror, I am very take it as it comes kind of girl. I like horror a lot, I'm starting to realize, and a lot of horror advanced reader copies sound really interesting to me, so I often go on a requesting spree because I'm like, it's in October, I can read it before then. I can read it before October. Lies that I keep telling myself. So now it is October and we need to catch up on quite a bit of arcs, and in this vlog I will be reading 4 books, the first of which is And Then She Fell by Alicia Elliott. As you can see, this is a final copy, so it's clearly already out. I also read a graphic novel called Let Me Out by Emmett Nahil. I read The Scarlet Alchemist by Kylie Lee Baker, Hatchet Girls by Diana Rodriguez Wallet, and All These Sunken Souls, a Black horror anthology, which was edited together by Circe Moskowitz. So let's start the footage. Let's get into these books because I enjoyed quite a bit of them. Hello, it's time for an update because I haven't actually updated you at all since starting a book, just because I haven't had the time to both read and update. Excuse me if you can hear my PC in the background. I know it's gonna bother editing Kelsey, but hopefully it doesn't bother you that much.
I was wondering what that noise was.
But I did want to talk about how I started my first arc and I've been liking it so much that I bought a physical copy. Is it stupid? Potentially. But we'll talk about this. So this is And She Fell by Alicia Elliott. First of all, Canadian author, so we know that I stan. But this is a mind-bending, gripping novel about native life, motherhood, and mental health that follows a young Mohawk woman who discovers that the picture-perfect life she's always hoped for may have horrifying consequences. So this is obviously a discussion about being native, being a mother in Canada, and it has some horrifying elements. So I was initially just intrigued by that premise alone. However, once I started this book, the prologue really got to me because basically the novel starts with Pocahontas coming out of the television during a movie and talking directly to our main character, Alice. She's discussing how mistreated she was from white men and how she lost her native identity throughout history, but they don't really talk about that and that her name isn't really Pocahontas. And there's a lot of discussions about how our main character, Alice, is going to encounter 2 Johns, obviously implying that she will face some sort of commonality with Pocahontas' story. The first chapter, the novel opens up with our main character Alice just having her baby with her husband. I forget her husband's name. Is it John? Steve. Okay. An equally boring white man name. Steve is doing his PhD or doctorate or some sort of educational search on the Mohawk community, which I think is very interesting. It definitely has some white savior type of trope with Steve. Alice is really conflicted right now after having her baby. So she's obviously dealing with some postpartum anger and not finding herself connecting to the baby and just finding this baby connect to everybody else but her. We haven't reached super horror yet. Obviously there was that intense Pocahontas prologue, which I actually found to be really creepy. We're sort of, I think, getting into the more creepier aspects as the book moves forward. So I am currently on page 79 and that's where I stopped in the book before I was like, okay, I need to update. But yeah, I'm absolutely loving this. I think Alicia Elliott just has really intense and interesting writing and I'm absolutely enjoying this. I had to buy this because I really do feel, I don't know if it's jinxing it, but I really do feel like this could be a 5-star. So I am in the middle of my workday. Obviously, I had to close everything so that you guys aren't seeing what I'm doing. But I will try to read a bit now at the end of my lunch break, work a bit. I'm probably going to go to the gym later. I'm not 100% sure because I'm not feeling the best, but maybe I'll just go to the gym and try to do some legs, maybe not cardio today just because I feel like actual garbage. And then I'll probably continue reading tonight and we'll see where the wind takes us. Hello, so it is now the end of the day, around 6:30, and this book, I'm literally flying through it because I'm loving it so much. But I'm on page 212, just getting into chapter 20. Things are really heating up. the stakes, or the feeling of horror and the stakes, has been catching up to our main character. She constantly feels threatened by the white people that surround her, and now this fear is transcending into a fear of her husband, who she's starting to question the benefit of their relationship to her, because clearly he, who is studying Mohawk culture and wanting to get a tenure as a professor, benefits by being in a relationship with her and having a child with her, right? And she is also at the same time being contacted by her ancestors, or what she believes to be her ancestors, telling her that she must tell the story of the creation of the world, that this is her destiny, that this is her fate. In the beginning, she was pushing away this idea that her ancestors are contacting her because her family has a history with mental illness, and she is worried that she's going to fall into that mental illness trap and have her child taken away from her, when really she and her grandmother were able to contact spirits and talk to spirits. And she's conflicted with this idea: is it mental illness, or am I actually able to contact spirits much like my grandmother was? And so there's a lot of this discussion of her fear, and that is also being kind of tied together with postpartum depression and what she's going through after giving birth to her child and not being able to connect with her child, and seeing that her child is connecting far more to the white people around them rather than her. I think this book is so amazing. I really like Alicia Elliott's discussions and the way that she writes the book. I'm on edge. It really reminds me of Mona Awad's books, where nothing particularly horrifying is happening yet, but you feel on edge and you are also becoming suspicious of every other character that surrounds our main character and our point of view. So I'm really, really loving this. And because I'm loving this, sometimes when I'm really loving a book, I just want to put it down and like sit with it and take a breather. So I decided that I'm going to pick up another arc that I have. It's for a graphic novel called Let Me Out by Emmett Nahil. And it is a riveting queer horror story set against the backdrop of an outbreak of satanic panic sweeping the New Jersey suburbs in 1979. When Pastor Holly's wife Kelly is found murdered, FBI agent Garrett takes on the case with local New Jersey Sheriff Mullen. Together, they start drumming up a convenient satanic-flavored scapegoat to cover up their own crimes of murder and experimentation. That scapegoat comes in the form of 4 children: Mitch, Terry, Lupe, and Jackson, the punks, the queers, and the outcasts. Soon, the group becomes the prime suspects of Kelly's murder. Now on the run from Garrett and Mullen, the group find themselves in the middle of a deal with the devil himself. So I'm very excited. It should be just a short graphic novel, and I'll try to get this done in the hour in between now and my boyfriend coming home, and then later I'll come back, we'll review it, and I will continue with And Then She Fell. Hello, so I just got back from the gym and I'm getting back into work, but I wanted to give an update because yesterday I finished Let Me Out by Emmett Nahil, and I wanted to give like a synopsis and a summary because I didn't talk about it at all, but it was one of the arcs I had. It's just that I had a little gripe with NetGalley because I find that when they don't allow, and this is particular for like graphic novels, but usually they don't allow you to add it to your Kindle, and sometimes it's only available on the NetGalley app. But what that means is that when it's on the NetGalley app, they can remove it very easily, which is like well within their right. They do give you like a last day to like download it type of thing. But it was so early for Let Me Out and like well before the publishing date, and I was just really frustrated. But I saw that it was on Kindle Unlimited, so I signed up for Kindle Unlimited for 3 months at 99 cents just to read this book. But I will give a synopsis. So Let Me Out is taking place in the 1970s, specifically around the Satanic Panic. And in this small town, there is a murder of a pastor's wife that occurs. And a group of LGBTQIA plus teens are being like labeled as the reasons for these murders due to the Satanic Panic because they are acting out of control and because they are like weird and different from the community that surrounds them. We learn in the novel that it's not necessarily them, and I'll leave it at that because I can't really express my frustration with the ending without getting into spoilers, but I do still think that the graphic novel is really beautiful and like worth a read. It's not that long, it doesn't take that long to read. So I would recommend it, but I think I have some major issues with the ending of the novel, and I'll get into that a little bit. So like I was saying, I adored the art style in this. It was very reminiscent of like Lumberjanes, if you know that graphic novel series, which I always really love because it's just so cozy and inviting, especially to newer readers of graphic novel books. And at the same time, this type of art style, while being cozy and inviting, doesn't stray away from the eeriness or the creepiness of a like spooky YA graphic novel. I really enjoyed the overall themes and how they tie together, specifically how Emmett Niel is tying the fear of the satanic panic in the 1970s to the growing fear and concern, in quotation marks, of LGBTQIA plus individuals today. The characters were extremely likable, very easy to root for, and that makes our villains in the novel seem extremely evil by contrast. My one complaint about this graphic novel, and kind of what I'm going to touch upon without going into spoilers, is that I do wish it was slightly longer than it was, because I really do feel like there were certain moments, especially climax moments, that needed to be fleshed out much more. I found the ending, like I said, to have some major issues, and one of the issues that I could talk about is that it's a tad confusing and rushed due to just the length of the graphic novel. And I don't feel like there was time taken to explain what was really going on. And so I'm not really sure I even fully understand what happened at the end of the novel. And I think that that is a big issue for me anyways. But if you like ambiguous endings or whatever, like, you could definitely pick this up and enjoy it for what it is. Next, I don't feel like getting the book, it's in the living room, but I got to page like 250 of And Then She Fell Down, and I think what I'm going to do is listen to the rest of it. I have about like 70 pages left, so I'm really almost done, and I'm really enjoying where it's going right now, because our main character, like I mentioned yesterday, is definitely losing it slash connecting to the spirits slash is she actually losing it, or is there something really sinister going on with the people in her town, with her husband, with everybody that surrounds her, trying to prevent her from writing her book and taking care of her newborn daughter Dawn. Like I mentioned, really loving this. I don't see it being less than a 4-star at the very least if I don't like the ending, but this has been a real hit for me, and I hope that that's clear because I actually really enjoyed this one. I forgot to mention that for Let Me Out, I gave it a 3.5 stars, so it's still something I really enjoyed, but as you can probably tell, endings are really important to me. So I'm hoping that And Then She Fell has a very strong ending. I do want to give a debut novel by an Indigenous Canadian author 5 stars and like really promote it and hope people read it, because I'm really enjoying it. Hello. So as you just saw in that last clip, I was tearing up. And I think it's no surprise to say that I gave this absolutely 5 out of 5 stars. Incredible. And I'm coming to you here to do a review, and I don't know if I can put the way that I'm feeling or how intelligent I think Alicia Elliott is into words to describe my feelings of this book. The best visual I can give for this series is like towards the end of the Barbie movie when they're going through the slides of the different cast members' moms, and Billie Eilish is playing in the background, and we're looking at these moms like just work so hard to give their kids a good life. And we understand like the importance of womanhood and motherhood, and as you saw, it made me cry. The ending of this book is very reminiscent of that scene to me. This novel is more than just a horror book that uses a woman's mental illness and postpartum struggles to tell a tale that would just frighten readers. It does definitely discuss those issues. Like, I'm not saying that it doesn't, but it ties them together with like themes of wrongful imprisonment, the mistreatment and genocide of Indigenous peoples, especially in Canada, drug addiction, feminism, and just so much more. Amongst Alice's story, there's this other story of the Sky Woman that she's writing, and it weaves into this story to really tie together these themes of creation and womanhood that just brought the novel together for me. Elliott's writing is so unbelievably smart and quick, and I just never wanted to put this book down unless like I really had to. And when I did, I was constantly thinking about picking it back up again because it made such an impact on my reading week this week. I loved it. I wasn't expecting to. I honestly requested this book for the cover, and this is probably going to be like one of my favorite books of the year. Loved it, and I highly recommend that you read it if you can. The next arc I'm going to read is The Scarlet Alchemist by Kylie Lee Baker. It's definitely an anticipated read for me. I really enjoyed Kylie Lee Baker's The Keeper of Night series. If you watched any of like my past October vlogs, I think for Thrillathon, when I was hosting that with my friends, I think I've read both books in those Thrillathon vlogs, so I'll leave a link up above to them. But I absolutely adored her writing, her storytelling. Like, I just really enjoyed Kylie Baker's writing. So when she was releasing a new book, I definitely requested it right away because I was so excited to read it. This is about a girl named Zilan who dreams of becoming a royal alchemist, of providing for her family by making alchemical gold and gems for the wealthy to eat in order to stay young forever. But for now, she's trapped in her impoverished village in southern China, practicing an illegal form of alchemy to keep food on the table, resurrecting the dead for a price. So because this novel is definitely on the more fantastical side for this vlog rather than like spooky, but I feel like we're still going for spooky here because the necromancy is going to really make this at least a bit more like horrific, which is something that I really love in fantasy. I also really like historical fantasy. It's one of my like tropes in books that I really enjoy. And I know Kylie Baker did this with the Keeper of Night series, so I'm very excited to see another skillful addition to her repertoire of historical fantasies. So I will definitely get started on this now because I do have the audiobook and I will listen to it as I continue to clean. So I will see you later. Hello, so I just wanted to give a quick update because I am now 100 or so pages into The Scarlet Alchemist and I am enjoying it as to be expected. So far it is very, or at least the writing is very similar of the Keeper of Night series, which I would think is a positive thing because it means that Kylie Lee Baker is keeping with this narrative voice that we're very comfortable with. It's not a jarring change, so it feels very reminiscent of the fantasy world that I'm expecting from this author. I think that could also be considered like a sort of detriment because it doesn't, at least right now, feel that different from the Keeper of Night series, but I am still enjoying it because obviously I really enjoy the Keeper of Night series, so it doesn't shock me that I'm enjoying this series. At this point in the book, her and her two cousins have now reached the main city where they are training to be the state alchemists. And at one point in her village, she had met this like random man who was asking her for help because our main character is, as mentioned, a necromantic alchemist. And he was like, I'm about to die. Can you save me? And she's like, no, peace. Gotta go do the state alchemist test. And it turns out that the alchemist test is at his castle. So he's like, hey, nice to see you again, Zilan. And I think that that's like going to be a really interesting and fun dynamic. I can already tell that there's going to be some sort of like romantic love interest there. And it's to be expected of Kylie Lee Baker's writing because she's not necessarily someone who creates love triangles, which I do appreciate. Like I think you can really tell that whoever the main character is with is probably end game, or at least that's what I'm hoping based on my knowledge of Keeper of Night, so I'm expecting it to be the same. But I am definitely flying through it, much like with the other series. I flew through that series and I'm definitely going to be flying through this one. It wouldn't surprise me if I maybe not finish it tonight, but definitely reading it within 24 hours for sure. I will go back to listening to it. I might take a little bit of a break and just watch some YouTube videos for a bit, and then I will get back to reading. Hello, so I wanted to give a quick update on the Scarlet Alchemist. This weekend is Thanksgiving in Canada, so the weekend's packed. We've had a lot to do. I had a 30th birthday yesterday. I had Thanksgiving at my mom's house yesterday. Today we have Thanksgiving at my mother-in-law's house today. And then tomorrow we have Thanksgiving at my dad's house. So it's been quite the weekend. So I've been a little bit busy and there's not enough time to do like updates or reading, quite frankly. So today I read, I don't know at what point I am in the book, but our main character has found her way into the castle. I won't get too much into details about like what she did in order to get into the castle and to get into the royal court, but it has been a very fascinating magic system so far in the book, and establishing herself as the main character, not me, establishing herself as the powerful alchemist that she needs to be, and how that whole thing happened, and the trials that she needed to go to were really interesting. I really enjoyed that, and like seeing how alchemy kind of works in this world and understanding how they understand alchemy as well. And now we're at the point in the book where she's kind of training, but at the same time she has taken on another position in the court as well, but I don't want to get too much into spoilers. I do think at this point the pacing is quite fast in this book, and I don't know, or I don't remember at least, if the Keeper of Night series was like this, but it is really fast and I feel like things are happening quite quickly. So I'm interested to see how the remainder of the book will kind of solve what's going on in this book and opening up the next. I feel like I'm about 50 or 60% in at this point, so I'm very interested to see how this is going to end, just because the pacing is so fast. So I don't know what else is going to happen, but I think it will be a very interesting thing. I probably won't update you until I'm finished this book. However, I do want to kind of start another arc today, so we're gonna see how that happens after Thanksgiving lunch. Hello, so I wanted to do a quick update because I am going to my dad's house now for Thanksgiving. Divorce child problems, we love it. But yesterday I did finish The Scarlet Alchemist by Kylie Lee Baker. As you know, as you saw, I was really enjoying this. Much like with most of Kylie Lee Baker's works, I end up always really enjoying what I'm reading from her because there's just something so addictive of her writing style. I always find myself like really speeding through her books. Considering I read this in like a day and a half, I think that's like pretty amazing. And I just think that it's because of her addictive writing style, and she constantly writes in a way that makes you want to continue reading. Her worlds are always extremely immersive, and I find like as a reader, you feel like you were right next to the main character because she writes in a way that's like so easily understandable. The characters are so relatable and you feel like that's someone that you know. And so you're being placed in this world and you really understand the motivations and the actions and whatever about the main character. Her magic systems I find always make sense. She has some really creative magic systems and really creative worlds, and I never find that they're too complicating to understand. I never find that they don't make sense. They always make sense for the context and world that they are in. In this book in particular, I really loved Baker's reimagining of the Tang Dynasty. It was super interesting to see like how it's inspired the book, but also in the ways that makes this book feel really unique. If I'm being honest though, despite this novel being really addictive, I did find the pacing to be a little too fast-paced. And maybe I wouldn't have felt this way if I didn't consume the story in like a day and a half, but there were certain plot points and relationships in the novel that I felt developed a little too quickly for my liking. The end of this book completely changed the game for me. Much like with the Keeper of Night series, I find Kylie Lee Baker's endings to be incredible, and I need to read the sequel because like what the fuck, that ending was insane and she twisted it in such an interesting way. I adored this book. So I gave it a 4 stars because again, that beginning portion was a little too fast-paced for me, but that ending really solidified it as one of the better YA fantasy books I've read this year. And then after I finished The Scarlet Alchemist, I decided to pick up All These Sunken Souls, which is a Black anthology of horror short stories edited by Circe Moskowitz. So far I've read 4 of the short stories in this collection and I've enjoyed 3 of them out of the 4. Definitely, like, I would even give them 5 out of 5 stars. The atmosphere was really insane. It was so spooky. I felt scared while reading it, which is something that I absolutely love. Usually with anthology books, and it'll probably end up being a very similar reading, but I end up giving these usually 3 to 3.5 stars because I don't find every story in the collection really hits. And that was the case for the 4th short story I read. I just didn't find it made sense or spooked me in a way that made the motivations of the horror in the book make sense. So now I'm actually at the story written by Joel Rochester from Fictional Fates, the YouTube channel here. And the reason I picked up this anthology was because I wanted to see his writing. He's been talking about writing for years. I think he has a creative writing degree, which is really interesting. And so I'm very excited to see his writing and anticipate any future works from him. So I'm very excited to continue the rest of the short stories. But if they're anything like the first 3 in this book, this anthology might be an anthology that really hits, and I'm very excited for that. Today, I might also pick up one of the other arcs I have. After we go to my father's house for Thanksgiving, we might also see one of my boyfriend's cousins. He's here from Spain. So we have a busy day ahead of us. Hopefully tonight, I will be able to read some of All These Sunken Souls because I'm actually really into it and I'm actually really spooked from it. So it's been a positive, and I will see you later. Hello, so I haven't updated in a couple of days just because I had a presentation for work for one of my reports. So I've been pretty busy with that. But yesterday I did get about 40% into Hatchet Girls, and so I wanted to kind of talk about it because I have been struggling with YA for a while. So basically, Hatchet Girls, to provide a synopsis, is about a girl named Tessa who one day is watching the news and she discovers that her brother is seen at the crime of a massive murder of his girlfriend's parents, and he is caught with the hatchet used to kind of dismember and kill his girlfriend's parents. At the same time, this is being told in a town where a very real hatchet murder happened with Lizzie Borden, sorry. She was an American woman who was tried and acquitted for the axe murders of her father and stepmother in Fall River, Massachusetts. Fall River is where this book takes place, so there is this kind of right now supernatural thing occurring because the murder of Vic is Tessa's brother's name. Vic's murder of his girlfriend's parents occurs at the same location as the Lizzie Borden murders because they live there and run it as a touristic site, as an Airbnb type of vibe. And so there's this going on, and there's this discussion of whether or not the supernatural event is real. Tessa doesn't believe that her brother could have done this. So we have this plot where Tessa is trying to investigate and understand why her brother was there at the scene of the crime, even though she knows technically he wouldn't have done it. However, Vic doesn't remember how he got there, why he was near the axe, and doesn't understand what happened to him. Conflicting this with chapters of before the murder with Vic's girlfriend Mirella and her involvement with the supernatural and these voices that are in her head that are telling her to kill her father. So this is not a spoiler. You find out pretty quickly that Marilla is dealing with these supernatural entities in the second chapter of the book. So it's not really a spoiler for that. There's more of a discussion going on of how this is affecting the family, how did Vic get involved, and that kind of thing. So far, I'm actually really surprised because, like I mentioned starting off this clip, I've been struggling with YA recently and not finding it to be the most engaging plots that I'm reading. But as you see so far in this video, we've read quite a bit of YA and I have been enjoying it, right? I enjoy The Scarlet Alchemist. I am enjoying all these Sunken Souls. And now Hatchet Girls is proving to be quite an interesting book as well. I do tend to like thriller horror-y of YA, so it's not that outside of my scope that I would be enjoying this, but it's definitely keeping me really engaged. The audiobook is really interesting, and so far I'm enthralled with the story and I do want to see how it ends. So today, because I've already presented my report while I'm doing some other things for work today, I will definitely be listening to it on audio. I want to try and finish, or at least get a lot of the way in for both All These Sunken Souls. I hope I can finish that today, and Hatchet Girls, because I do need to start another vlog and I'm going to New York next week. So I really want to have all these things done so that I could post these vlogs in a more timely manner. That's the goal for today. Definitely working, listening to Hatchet Girls, trying to finish All These Sunken Souls. I will update you in a bit. Hello, welcome back to the end of the vlog. I have quite a bit to update you on since we last spoke because I finished 2 of the arcs that I was reading. So let's get into what you last saw me reading, because I definitely read it super quickly, and that was Hatchet Girls. So as you can see by the last clip, I was shook and shaken by what was happening at the end of the book. Honestly, I am so surprised by how much I enjoyed this book. I consumed, as you saw, the majority of this audiobook in one sitting because I really couldn't stop listening to it during the day. I had like not meaningless tasks, but like boring tasks to do, and I just could not stop listening to this. As I explained, I didn't really know any of the actual true crime aspects of the book, but I really feel like this novel envelops the case well within the plot and ties it brilliantly to the more supernatural things that occur within the book. And you can really tell how much research Wallach did into this case, and as she explains in the author's note, experienced herself when she went to the locations. And I just felt like that added so much depth to the novel. For the first 2/3 of the book, it's really atmospheric and eerie, but that last 1/3 completely spooked me. And the twist ending, amazing. The last chapter as well turned it into something that I really wasn't prepared for. And I just love how Wallach tied everything together so seamlessly. I really enjoyed the characters we followed, and I was shook when the final reveal happened. This book really held my attention the whole time. It really surprised me. I really enjoyed it, and I ended up giving this a 4 stars. I think if you're into like true horror, eerie type of books, I think you would really enjoy this. And then today, while I was waiting for my boyfriend to get ready when we were going out, I ended up finishing the last few stories in All These Sunken Souls. So I want to start off this review, and I think I said this within the vlog, that usually short story anthologies don't really get higher than like a 3.5 stars for me. And that's the case here as well. Often it's because I either have stories within the book that I really enjoy, And then there's some that just feel a little flat to me, which was definitely the case here. I think the book opened really solidly. Like the first 3 stories were really spooky and really scared me. And genuinely that made me really excited to continue because I was like, is this an anthology that I'm going to love every story? However, once we got around to the middle portion of the book, I did start to find the stories, while they were still spooky, to be a little confusing or meandering and dipping a little in terms of shock value. However, this collection ends with a bang. That short story ended up becoming one of my favorites of the anthology overall. And I think generally, if you love short horror fiction, I definitely suggest picking this one up. I think the collection was worth reading, and I think there are some really solid short stories in here that are worth picking up. And if you would like to know what my favorites were, they were the short story Lights that opens up the novel, All My Best Friends Are Dead, which is like a Bloody Mary type of retelling, and then the book's closing story, which is No Harm Done. That is like a zombie apocalypse around Christmas time, and I loved it. It was so good and such a good way to end the collection overall. So let's give a general how did this vlog go? So first we read Let Me Out, and I gave that a 3.5 stars. Next was And Then She Fell, and as you saw, this is definitely one of my favorite books of the vlog. I gave this 5 stars. Incredible. Then I read The Scarlet Alchemist, which I gave 4 stars. Hatchet Girls, which I also gave 4 stars, as you saw. And All These Sunken Souls, which I gave a 3.5 stars. There was absolutely no book in this vlog that was under 3 stars, which is amazing and almost unheard of for me for like ARC vlogs. So I'm very excited about this. I genuinely think all these books were really good and worth picking up for not even for the horror season, but if you're a mood reader, definitely these are some books that you should pick up in the future if you can. So that's it. That's the end of the vlog. Please let me know down below if you happen to read any of these. Did you like them? Did you hate them? Let me know. If you would like to follow me on any of my other social medias, I do leave a link down below to my Twitter, Goodreads, and Instagram if you would like to follow me there. And of course, because it is the end of the video, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Does wonders for my channel. It makes me feel really good. And that's it. I never know how to end these things, so I will see you next time. Okay, bye!